You're not Ric Flair.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brand John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show. Today's date is Tuesday. John, so happy it's Tuesday. Have you ever heard that before?
No. What does that acronym spell out, Brad?
I think it's like POOP or something like that. Anyway, today is July 2nd. This is the A block, and I just, I've had a lot of interest in the fact that how do I get ready for this show? Well, first off, I drink my muscle milk. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm shaking my muscle milk. And this morning I have my fresh supply of Little Debbie's. I don't know if you hear that. Little Debbie's zebra cakes. Although I wish they'd make my favorite cakes, but they don't, except for fall party cakes. And then of course there's my Diet Pepsi. I don't know if you can hear that opening. Oh yes,
I do hear that.
Yes.
Now, Brad, just to be clear, you're telling us that you're vigorously shaking your muscle milk while looking at Little Debbie? Is that what you told the officer?
Guilty as charged. Okay, this is the Brad and John Show. Some people might say it's the second worst show on the radio, but we say we might be the third worst show. No, we do this show every single day, Monday through Friday, weekdays, as John points out. Not daily, that would mean 7 days a week, but weekdays.
Yeah, weekdays.
Weekdays, Monday through Friday, from 7 to 8 o'clock. The reason I mention that is a lot of people listen to this in the future, and right now it's the present, but in the future on our podcast, which is on Red Circle, our video podcast, which is on YouTube, and you can find that at bjshow.co, and also at bjshow.us is the video component of that. So we just want everybody to know that this is a real live radio show broadcast across most of the St. Louis area, except for the area that the Lutheran Church interferes with us. But that's a whole nother story, John. And you know what? That story just gets more interesting every day.
Yo, Brad, I got to tell you, the other day when I was driving in the St. Louis metro region, I heard of, as I usually do, I have it on 104.5, and hand to the Lord, Brad, I heard religious programming coming in from our friends at KFUO.
Right.
And then I heard Brad do an ad for God Squad.
It's so, no kidding.
On my mother, I heard that happen. So your voice, Brad, which was talking about God Squad, was interspersed in and out with the KFUO broadcast.
If you don't know the story, we're having a fight. At least I'm having a fight. You would think,
it's a jihad, Brad.
Right. And believe it or not, John, that's part of my top 3 this morning, but we'll get to that. But the nice folks at the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, the nice folks down there that live in a shack down there because they are, they're putting all their money into worshiping God. They live in a little shack on the corner of Lindbergh and 44. It's a little shack that probably would cost, what would you say, $20-30 million to build today, John?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, a little shack down there with the fountain out in front and the whole bit. They are being most uncooperative with us, and they're essentially saying, so sad, too bad, Brad. We've got this new station, and we don't care if it interferes with your station. We're operating under the prescribed limits by the FCC, so we're doing God's work, and you're doing heathen work. So, John, you and I are doing heathen work. Okay.
They should respect the Lord's name, and that's in story number 3, which I have a feeling you're getting around to introducing, Brad.
Yes, that's John Combest. Every single day he puts together this incredible website called johncombest.com. We start the show off with this guy. Your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem. And what do you do, sir?
Now on with the countdown.
I got to hit all the buttons, John.
And here they are. Their stories coming up. We're on our way to the number 1.
And we start with?
In third place.
Brad, a little more than 8 years ago, a gentleman named Brian Williams, who started Cash Money Records, he had one of the best interviews, arguably the best interview ever conducted by our friends. Well, I can't say our friends. Folks that we've heard before, Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club. And Mr. Williams, as the leader of Cash Money, sat down with the Breakfast Club. And he said, put some respect on my name. Put some respect on it. When you say my name, put some respect on it. All 3 of y'all. Well, Brad, we had someone in Missouri channel that exact quote yesterday. She was talking to KCTV in Kansas City, and her name is Cassandra Brewington. And Miss Brewington is quite upset about Governor Kehoe's budget vetoes. If you look on my website today, Brad, you'll see a collection, a hodgepodge, an amalgamation of stories from across the state. Folks who run your favorite organizations, Brad, aka nonprofits, they are outraged that the governor would have the audacity to either cut in half or completely eliminate their handouts. Let's get back to Miss Brewington. She was talking about the fact that the governor ruthlessly cut a child care program in the Kansas City area. Brad, originally that group was slated to get only $5 million to provide a little child care to urbanites in Kansas City. And the governor heartlessly and cruelly cut that funding to $2.5 million. Here's what Ms. Brewington says. Parents are ringing up your groceries. Parents are taking care of your children. Parents are probably cutting your check. Put some respect on the parents. Governor Kehoe, I think you should follow the lead of Ms. Brewington and put some respect on those parents. I'd also point out, Brad, that KCUR, they're the super unbiased public radio station in Kansas City. They talk about a group that also got its funding cut, Brad. They're called the Arts Asylum. And one group would lose $250,000 from its budget if it doesn't get this money from the state government. So we have a long list of folks, Brad, who are really ticked off that they're being weaned from the government teat. You can find all those stories at johncombest.com today.
Well, one of those things. I mean, and what you said yesterday, you said he cut $500 million, and my report said $2 billion. Which was the actual number that he cut?
Some of it has to do with the spending freeze, and I'm not sure exactly how this works, Brad. Some of the funding was actually cut, and then some of it is frozen.
So some of the stuff could possibly be spent, but it's sort of in limbo right now?
I believe that's the difference. That's the discrepancy between the estimates here. And in a lot of these stories, to be fair, it depends on how the reporter adds them up and what the reporter considers a cut or a freeze.
Well, hold it. In the same sentence, you said, to be fair, and then you mentioned a reporter.
That's true, Brad. I should say a content creator. How about that?
Aren't those mutually exclusive terms anymore? Okay. Number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
A little more than 40 years ago, Brad, there was a world-famous songwriter who moved us all to near tears with a little ditty that went like this. Someday we'll find it. The Rainbow Family Gathering. The Stinkies. The Druggies. And me. That little man was named Kermit D. Frog. And he had a song called The Rainbow Family Gathering, or maybe it was called The Rainbow Connection. I don't know. But I was thinking of Kermit this morning, Brad, because we have a headline from MissouriNet. Counterculture group continues pouring into Missouri's Mark Twain National Forest. Brad, have you ever been down to Mark Twain in southern Missouri?
I have, many times.
I have never been there, which is kind of unique. Like, people talk about how beautiful it is down there, folks who are in the national forests and national parks, and I've never been down there. But what we have as of, I guess it would have been 2 days ago, Brad, around 650 members of a counterculture group have arrived at Mark Twain National Forest. And this is part of what's called the Rainbow Family of Living Lights annual gathering that culminates on July 4th. Now, this very peaceful group, which is only 650 people now, but more are coming, there have already been 150 law enforcement actions involving the Rainbow Family. 44 were called incident reports. Brand, you would probably be more of an expert on that than I am. You certainly would be. 91 of those were written warnings, 66 violation notices, and so far there have been 3 arrests as of Sunday. And law enforcement actions include traffic violations, drug possession and distribution, and damaging natural resources. Now, Brad, this is a very peaceful group, so I'm surprised that they would, do anything that might be breaking the law. It's not reported in this piece by Marshall Griffin of MissouriNet, but I did a little digging of my own, Brad, this morning, and I looked up some reports on the family gathering. I used Instagram, and I used a a places search and a tag search. And apparently, from what I learned, when folks came home from Vietnam that were anti-war veterans, they wanted a place, they said, where they could go on July 4th to celebrate Independence Day, where they didn't have to be reminded of bombs and guns going off. They wanted somewhere big and open without fireworks. And, you know, a place where they could heal, Brad, in their own natural ways. So they got together in a national forest back in 1972. And every year, a group of, I think it's fair to call them stinky hippies, or at least hippies, has chosen one national forest to go and invade and do a little bit of, you know, natural healing, whatever you consider that, and play some music and gyrate and do strange stuff and certainly not clean or wash themselves. And this year, the Rainbow family has chosen Missouri and Mark Twain National Forest. So we could expect, Brad, the National Forest Service says we should expect around 2,000 people. Organizers in the past have said that more than 2,000 have come out. So I don't know, but there will probably be some arrests. There'll probably be some overdoses. There'll probably be some, you know, people fainting because they're not hydrating, et cetera. And that's here in Missouri, Brad, Mark Twain National Forest Rainbow Family Gathering.
John, sounds like the old days of the Mississippi River Festival. You don't know what that is, or do you remember?
No, I don't remember that. What was that, Brad?
Oh, you don't know about the Mississippi River?
No, I really don't know.
Okay. What's interesting is, let me just say this. My one son is always talking about, oh, my God, I love The Who, all these groups that were, you know, way before he was born. And one day, I sat down with him. I said, okay, name me some of your favorite groups. And he went through a whole list. The Who, I've seen them. The Who, you know, he went through this whole list, all these like these super groups from the 70s, 60s, 70s,
like
and 80s.
Grateful Dead and guys like that.
I've seen them at Mississippi River Festival. The Mississippi River Festival was the precursor to Riverfront, or to Riverport. The Mississippi River Festival was a natural amphitheater on the grounds of SIU Edwardsville, and in its day, it was incredible. I mean, if you go back and look at the list, there's a couple Facebook pages that are up, that some groups that remember this stuff, and people putting pictures up there and stuff like that. And it was the concert venue in the state, in the Midwest. I mean, there was one of the concerts, I think it might have been The Who, 35,000 people there. It was crazy time, and it got the part that was sort of weird about it is it was supposed to be the summer home of the St. Louis Symphony. And the St. Louis Symphony, they had a big tent, and you could sit under the tent. Those were the expensive seats, but everybody else sat on the lawn, sort of like Riverport, same kind of deal, except it's not a tent. It's like a structure. And it was like the creme de la creme of rock and roll. If there was a rock and roll group that was, I mean, it was to the point where if you went to Riverport and you went for an entire summer, you were listening to the playlist of Kehoe. Let me put it that way. It was
wow, and was Sweetmeat there to hand out a smoky treat?
I don't think I ever saw any of the radio stations over there, but it came to an end because it got so popular. And was sort of like what you're saying. There was so much crap that happened there, so many bad things, and I can tell personally some stories which I have very personal knowledge of, unfortunately, that still affect me to this day. Police officers.
Like a bad acid trip?
Well, no. Police officers almost being murdered. I mean, I'm telling you some hardcore type stuff. And what the university finally decided, okay, we've had enough. And they just ended it, and it was gone. And
Brett, exactly where was that again?
Was on the campus as SIU Edwardsville. Matter of fact,
oh, wow,
it's funny, about 15 years ago, this is a weird story. I met someone that I went to University SIU years ago, and they moved out of the area, and we actually went and found it. It's to the point where it's like it was in the middle of nowhere on the campus. If you know the SIU campus, I don't know if you know this or not, this is like somewhat goofy trivia. The SIU campus is one of the 10 largest landmass campuses in the country. It's like 6,000 acres or something like that. I mean,
I did not know that.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, it's monstrous, and it goes. I mean, it's not. You can measure it not necessarily in acres. You can measure it in square miles. Whereas most campuses, like Mizzou is like, I don't know, maybe a square mile. I mean, it's a very small area. But that was the Mississippi River Festival, and back in its day, it was the place to go. I mean, it was the place, and it sounds like exactly what you're talking about with the rainbow folks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you know what? It sounds like SIUE could afford some cleanup money. But I know who is going to get some cleanup money, Brad. Story number one.
I got a feeling that's coming up right now.
The number one.
The top headline from my website today. After marathon session, Missouri senators give crucial votes to pass massive budget bill. This story is brought to us by St. Louis Public Radio's Jason Rosenbaum, with some help from, it looks like, Sarah Fenton, who's another content creator at St. Louis Public Radio. Eric Schmitt and Josh Hawley, to no one's surprise, voted for President Trump's budget. When I say to no surprise, excuse me, they had both indicated in recent weeks that they would be supporting the budget. Schmitt says he specifically highlights provisions in the bill he crafted to make college saving accounts, known as 529s, more attractive, as well as a measure aimed at, you ready for one of your favorite recent words, Brad?
I am. Go ahead.
Measure aimed at culling waiting lists for home and community-based services for people with disabilities. So he gives some quotes, what he feels about the budget. But as teased a moment ago, Brad, Senator Josh Hawley is especially enthused about the fact that this bill finally includes money for the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. Rosenbaum notes that program, which expired last year, would be available to Missourians who became sick because of radioactive waste exposure in the St. Louis area. And here's Hawley's quote. RECA is a generational legislation for Missouri and will finally deliver justice for survivors in the St. Louis region. And when this reconciliation bill is signed into law, Missouri will also see new health care funding and big tax cuts for working families. I call on the House to quickly pass this legislation and send it to President Trump's desk. RECA, Brad, our long national nightmare of budget talk, plus our local nightmare of no RECA funding, may have come to an end.
John, I make fun of Mr. Pirate Shoes and Mr. Skinny Jeans, but I agree with him 100% on this. Once again, this is a horrendous crime that was perpetrated upon the natives or the residents of specifically North St. Louis County and St. Charles County, a remnant of the Manhattan Project. If you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, a lot of that uranium in those bombs came right from St. Louis, and they dumped this stuff on the north side of the airport. And for what? What do we figure? 80 years has it been? 1945.
Only 80 years, Brad. Yeah. That's not even your whole lifetime.
Yeah, 10 more years. 1945 to 2025, and they're still screwing around with it, and they're still not telling the truth. Remember, I told the story about they said they're going to close the bridge on McDonald Boulevard because it needed to be rebuilt. There was no bridge in McDonald Boulevard. The reason they closed McDonald was to scoop out all the dirt that was sitting underneath McDonald Boulevard, which was polluted with all the uranium and all the radioactive stuff. And will the government come forward and tell us that? No, they still are lying to us, which is so sad. So sad, John.
Sad and unsurprising. And Brad, can I share, in the spirit of Kermit the Frog, a hope and dream with you right now?
Go ahead.
I hope and dream that in B Block, which is Brad's top 3, which has miraculously been updated every weekday at bradstop3.com, I really hope that you pulled from a St. Louis Public Radio story involving one of your fellow geriatrics who's totally not on testosterone replacement therapy. And maybe at some point today or tomorrow, if it's not part of the top 3 today, maybe it could be part of the top 3 tomorrow. And maybe you could place a call to this elderly gentleman and fish a colorful quote out of him.
John, I'm looking at my top 3. First off, I have to say, I don't know if you've looked at the national news, but yesterday was just a gold mine of stuff. All sorts of crazy stuff about Trump winning this battle against CBS, if you saw that. And it's thing after thing after thing about the University of Pennsylvania. Did you read that story?
No, what happened up there?
Oh, my God. The University of Pennsylvania has essentially, talking about if this were wrestling, if this were pro wrestling, the University of Pennsylvania was body slammed. They were thrown against the turnbuckle. They were hit in the head with a folding chair. They had a folding table knocked over their head, and they were on the ground, and they finally said, I give up. I give up. Unbelievable story. You really don't know about this?
No, I haven't paid any attention to it at all.
I got so many things in the top 3 that I've rewritten my list twice. And matter of fact, I had the thing I was going to be my number 1 story, which is now changed. But we will do that coming up next. And, you never know what's going to happen, John. You don't never know what's going to happen.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I bet you can't. Okay, we have to take a break.